Hamato Yoshi walked the streets of New York City by himself, his hands shoved into his pockets, staring at his feet as he took each step. New to America, he still mourned the loss of his beloved wife, Tang Shen, and only daughter, Miwa. It was only mere weeks since they had been both taken away from him. And to make his misery worse, not only he lost his family, but he lost all of his honor and pride. He had no choice but to leave Japan, the country in which he was born and raised. He fled to New York, where no one knew of his past, no one knew of his shame, and no one really cared. He looked up at the sidewalk for just a second to glimpse at the pet store he was passing that moment. A single sign caught his eye as he glanced. The sign read, "Turtles for Sale." His hand brushed around in his pocket, checking to make sure he had money before he went into the store. When he felt the crumpled dollar bills in his pocket, he made his way off the busy street and into the store. Without hesitation, he made his way over to the tank containing about a dozen baby turtles. He looked around the tank for a price on the turtles, and soon he found a sticker on the bottom of the tank that showed the price. Each turtle was $15.99. He pulled out his money and counted up. He had a 50 and two $10 bills, along with some change. He mentally computed that he could purchase four turtles and still have enough to cover the sale tax of New York City. He smiled as he looked at all the turtles, picking which ones he liked the most. About 5 minutes later of looking, he was comforted by one of the employees in the store. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, noticing his interest. "Yes, actually, I would like to purchase 4 of these little turtles," he said, paying her little attention as his eyes glued to the aquarium. "Okay, great!" she smiled excitedly, probably more enthusiastic about the purchase than he was. "Any 4 in particular you wanted?" she asked, getting him a small dish for him to take them home. He looked one more at the turtles. They looked so similar, but 4 specific ones stood out of him. There was one very close to the edge of the aquarium, looking out at him and the rest of the store. He looked curious. Yoshi smiled and selected that one. And then he saw another fighting for food and winning. He seemed very possessive and greedy. He selected that one. As he looked around at the back, he saw one quietly standing by itself, taking in all of his surroundings. He was patient and observant. And another of the small turtles was quite hard to miss as he rolled around in the tank, getting stuck on his back of his shell. Yoshi silently laughed at the poor struggling turtle and selected them both. The girl picked them up and set them carefully in the container with some dirt at the bottom. She tried to talk to him into buying an aquarium and other accessories, but he refused and walked up to the cash register. He paid for them and started to walk back to his home. As he walked, he was trying to come up with some names for the young turtles. He looked down at them, watching their every move. Now in a much better mood than he was before, he had these pets. While he was walking, a man in a suit bumped into him. Usually, he would just ignore it. He had lived in New York City for a while, and he had a mild understanding of rudeness of some people, but something about this man did not seem right. He thought for a moment, tilting his head to look down at the turtles, which were all looking up at him curiously. He swiftly turned around and locked his eyes on the man with the suit, following him as he walked down the street. When the man turned into a small alleyway, Hamato Yoshi decided to stay out of the main street. He got his ear as close to the alley as he could, listening on what he could see what the man was talking about. In an attempt to get a closer look, he took another step toward the alley. In the process, he stepped on a rat that happened to be rummaging through the nearby garbage. The rat's squeak echoed as it ran from the alley, revealing the presence of Hamato Yoshi. "Go no further. This place is the place where you are not allowed to be in this place. We have seen in this place by you, so this is not a place that will be left by you," the man said menacingly, creeping in on Yoshi. The other identical man came in behind him. Before he had time to question their relationship, Hamato Yoshi became defensive. He held tightly to the container of the turtles and used his ninja mastery to free himself from the circle he had been forced into. He paid very close attention to the turtles while he attacked the strange men, making sure they were not moving around or falling. During his battle, he managed to knock a canister of bright blue ooze out of the man's hands, spilling its contents all over himself and his new pets. It burned him. He screamed out in pain as his clothing tore right off. Now fur covered his body. He felt a long tail growing out of his lower back. Collapsing to the ground, he didn't notice that a similar mutation was occurring with his new pets. They stood on 2 feet and had a physical similar to a human, only retaining their shells and green skin, each gaining a sense of self, reviewing their world over for the first time. They looked at each other, then at the rat collapsing on the sidewalk. They stumbled over to him, adjusting to their new 2-legged bodies, and watched him. Yoshi recognized their presence quickly and turned to face them. 2 of them had sustained slight deflects when they fell from the container during the mutation accident. One lost a tooth, and another obtained a crack on the plastron. Though their mutation appeared to be less painful than his own, he collected them. They looked so confused. He managed to find the lid of a metal trash can where he could look at his reflection. He was appalled, covered in fur from head to toe, or paw. He had whiskers and ears that stood on the end at even the quietest of sounds. He felt hideous as he looked over his new form, retaining his human form with his rodent aspects. Remember that he could be seen. He took a peek out of the busy streets. People paid little attention as they passed the alleyway, too busy on their cell phones and other devices to look up at the street ahead, let alone in the dark alley, as they were traditional vows of people that call New York City their home. Hamato Yoshi was too concerned being seen. He quickly snatched the turtles and made his way down the open manhole. In the sewers, they would be safe from dangerous and judgmental world above. He released them when they reached the bottom, letting them explore, soon realizing that he had become their sole figure. The young turtles followed him everywhere. They did not seem to be bothered by his mutated form. He realized that it was his responsibility to raise these young turtles as his own. He led them to an abandoned subway station where they could continue their lives for quite some time. It was his plan to teach them everything he knew about self-defense, training them in the ancient art of ninjutsu, while also teaching them more digital things, such as talking and basic schooling. Not long after he realized his responsibility, he recalled that he had yet named all of them. He was in search of naming inspiration when he stumbled upon an old book on the Resistance Italy. Flipping through it, he spotted the names of 4 famous painters of the Resistance era: Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. He looked over the boys, playing in the middle of the floor. He disputed the names randomly, giving them off as he looked at each turtle. Leonardo became the serene and calm turtle. Donatello was given the most curious of the turtles. Raphael was the violent son, and Michelangelo was the goofball of the group. They crowded around Yoshi, and each found a place for him to rest, soon drifting into much needed sleep. Yoshi looked down on each of them lovingly, feeling a strong attachment between them all forming. He became their father, and they became his sons.